Oh, you didn't know? It's the Rose Show. Oh, my Lord. We are here already after months and months and months of advertising. It is time for the very first episode of The Rose Show. I am your host for today, Jay, of course. Who else but me? Welcome. I'm so happy to start this journey, and I thank you for tuning in for this. I'm so excited to get this project underway. It has been so much work. May of 2023 is when I started thinking about this project. May of 2023, and it is finally time. Oh, I'm so happy to be here finally. But let's go ahead and get to it. I hope you had a great new year. I know I did. I actually got a chance to hang out with the sponsors of today's episode. Crazy Martins, they hosted a pinball tournament offside of the normal grounds of the business. Man, it was so much fun. And over at Crazy Martins, you can play a multitude of different kind of games. But I hope everybody had a great time themselves. I know I did. But today, our episode today, we're going to go ahead and get into it now because we got a good one planned for you. It is my good friend Lee Carver of AXE, Alla Xul Elu. This is the first episode, not only of the show, but this is the first of the Unmasked series. Now, if you're curious on what exactly is the Unmasked series, it doesn't mean that I've got Lee Carver here without a mask on. Not at all. As a matter of fact, this is strictly an audio episode, if you will, in the words of Dusty Rhodes, if you will. It is just audio only. We decided to not put the video aspect of it because I wanted to get the purest interview that I could out of Mr. Carver. And you can't do that with the gimmick on, and that's what the Unmasked series is all about. Now, there's still going to be a video element to this, but it's not going to be a live feed like it would be in some of the other episodes. And that's probably going to be the theme of the Unmasked series. Is I want these people to be as comfortable as possible outside of the gimmick, so we can take a deep dive into who it is that we're talking to. And you can't do that while you're in the gimmick. For most people, anyway, they're more comfortable outside of it. So that's the compromise. We get a deep dive into who it is we're talking to. But the video element's not really going to work in certain situations like that. So again, there's still a video element to it. You will see it when we start the episode here in a minute, but it's not going to be, you're not literally going to be getting the maskless version of whoever the guest is when they're on the Unmasked series. So just wanted to clarify that before we get going, so that way people don't look at this and go, no, what the hell? But anyway, I'm not going to take any more of your time. I'm ready to get this thing rolling. Not every single front portion of the show is going to be as short as this one. I just think it's important to really jump into this because I'm excited as hell for it. Been sitting on this for a while. I think you're going to enjoy it as well. So let's get to it. But before we do, a message from our sponsors coming your way right now. All right, everybody, it's time to stop and let you know about today's sponsor of the show, Crazy Martins in Piqua, Ohio, one of my favorite places in the entire world to go to. Crazy Martins has provided their customers with quality products for over 20 years, from ashtrays to water pipes and everything in between. Stop in, check out their selection, and of course, check out their pinball machines. With over 20 pins to choose from, there is something for everyone. Crazy since 1996. I don't just say this about every place. I love going to Crazy Martins. I've always loved going to Crazy Martins ever since I was of age to go to Crazy Martins. It's one of my favorite places in the entire world. Me and my wife go there almost every Sunday to play pinball machines. It is one of the funnest spots in Ohio you could possibly find. It is in Piqua, Ohio. Check out their website at www.crazymartins.com. Hello. What is up, everybody? It is finally time. It's here. This is it. The first official episode of The Rose Show. And today, I'm starting off with a bang. I am honored to call this man one of my best friends in the entire world. He is Lee Carver of Alla Xul Elu. My brother, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on the first one. Beyond honored, man.
Yeah, no, hey, the honor's all mine. Well, we had a discussion about what we were going to do with this episode. We have been kicking around ideas, and what we basically came up with for everyone in attendance today is we kind of want to take a deep dive into the life and times of Lee Carver. How Lee Carver became to be. Because we all see who Lee Carver is, and we see Lee Carver everywhere. If you're at an AAC show, you're going to run into him. But I think everyone is usually kind of wondering, what's the story behind the mask? So that's what I want to do here today. I want to get your background. I want to get what drove you into underground music. I want to get it all. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let you take over with the first bits of how you kind of got into music in general.
Well, first off, I think everybody that I've said this before, but I think it's super integral and it's true that everybody that's into juggalo music, underground rap, hip hop, whatever you want to call it, we all share a common thread of being just like fucking fatherless, entertainment addicted, just like imaginaries, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
So like I was immediately drawn to rap at an early age. My mom actually bust my ass for putting Raising Hell from Run DMC inside of my Teddy Ruxpin. I don't think I've ever shared that with anybody, but I remember that. And like, I don't know. It's just like the world of see, it's different, man. Hip hop is the shit, and hip hop has always been dope. It's the core nucleus of what I do. But underground rap, underground hip hop to me is like where I always want to dwell because it just is a marriage of all the shit that I love the most.
Right.
So immediately I gravitated to that early on when I was a kid. But I can remember the finite moment that I decided that I was like, this is what I'm going to try to do as an adult, to as a career, and I'm spelling that with a K to be edgy career.
Right. Of course. Right. Right. Right.
But like, I remember the first gathering of the Juggalos, and I was there with some of my old school homies, and I remember just being like, man, it was specifically during Twisted set when they first appeared with the makeup. And I remember thinking, man, this is it. This is like, this encapsulates exactly what I want and what I love about just music, period. Theater, period.
You actually hit a pretty good point there. It does seem like, and I've never thought about this until literally right this moment. Pretty much all of us come from broken homes in one way, shape, or form. It's fucking crazy.
They know what they were doing. They knew who they were marketing towards, man.
Right. Okay. So you go to your first gathering, you see Twisted. Why underground music more than other kind of, because I mean there's obviously plenty of subgenres of rap. What was it made you think like, oh, I've got to be in the underground? What specific what set the underground apart from just normal rap that you wanted to be a part of?
Honestly, I think it's the theater of all of it because when I was young, it's just the ultimate escapism. Like I could listen to the Chronic and I could listen to 36 Chambers and be like, man, this shit's so fucking dope. I love this shit. But then there's just a certain key element to early Twisted, Insane Clown Posse, just like just the House of Crazies, just all the progenitors of the genre, all the pioneers of the shit. Esham, fucking. I mean, I used to be so obsessed with every single fucking person putting out music back in the day. And I think it really is the theatrics, honestly. It's just got to be the fact that it's just more immersive and it's just the escapism of it all. It's just far more entertaining. And if you look at it, unlike any form of music, like somebody can really enjoy, like, say somebody's like, oh, I'm a hardcore Eminem fan. which is like, okay, that's cool. And I'm sure there's a million, we know there's a million motherfuckers out there that are hardcore Eminem fans. But when you go to their house or when you look at their car, for instance, you can't tell that they're like an Eminem mark. But then you see somebody that's in underground hip hop or underground rap, whatever you want to say, the wicked shit, whatever you want to call it, you can immediately pinpoint them. That, I mean, we wear it on our sleeves, and I think that there's a reason for that, and I think it's just the immersiveness of all of it.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. It seems like there's not a whole lot of genres other than metalheads, I guess I would say. There's not a whole lot of genres that have fan bases that are going to plaster what they like as much as, people that are connected to the underground. Even with bands like, for instance, I just recently got into Ghost, which of all people, you're the one who kind of turned me on to that. I found myself wanting to plaster Ghost all over the place. It's just like I've been mentally trained to want to put out into the world, this is what I listen to. But it's also crazy because it seems like even though we do that, we plaster what we like, I don't want anyone else listening to what I'm listening to. Does that make sense? Because like it's strange because like for instance, I just got hip to this band called Wind Rose. Now what Wind Rose is, they call themselves dwarf metal. So they basically take Tolkien lyrics or Tolkien stories and they turn it into metal songs. And it's actually incredible. And I found myself wanting to suggest it to people because I'm like, man, this is awesome. But then at the same time, it's like, I don't want to tell too many people because I found them. So if I keep telling more people, they'll listen and then it won't just be mine. So at the same time, while we plaster what we like, there's this weird dichotomy, I feel, at least with me, maybe it's just me, where I don't want other people to listen to it too. And that maybe that is something that creates the gatekeeping. But do you kind of feel the same way, or are you more of the other side of it, where it's like I got to share this with everybody?
I absolutely can identify, as shitty as this fucking sounds, I can absolutely identify with people that want to be exclusionary and very close to the heart, close to the vest or whatever phrase you want to use about that world, because it's such it's so obscure. And then when you meet somebody else, you almost want to challenge them just to test their validity. It's like, are you real or not? It's like,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
not so much as a grown man, but when you're a kid especially, you're just like, there's no fucking way that other people know about this. The guy that's slapping the dwarf metal in his car, I guarantee you he doesn't run into many other people that are listening to dwarf metal. But when he pulls up to a guy listening to dwarf metal, he, he's trying to pull his fucking credentials and see what's up.
Right. I didn't realize just how fucking corny that sounded until it was repeated back to me. Dwarf metal. But
Dwarf,
it's beautiful. I, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. It's beautiful.
dwarf metal.
If anybody's curious, look up the song. I'm going to give you an example of both. Look up Wind Rose, look up the song Fellows of the Hammer first, and then go look up Diggy Diggy Hole. But moving on here. So that's what inspired you, the underground aspect of it, going to the gathering scene, Twisted. What was it? What were your first steps? Because every artist, I think, has at least one story of something that they did where it was like bottom barrel recording. So, like for me, it was a computer microphone, and I took two boombox speakers, plugged them into the back of my computer, took the boombox speakers and pointed them at the microphone, and that's how I made rap songs. Do you have any what was your first step? Did you go straight to a studio or did you kind of have some like makeshift stuff as well?
Man, since we are being as fucking real as real talk, since I'm on here with my homie, I'm going to give you the real spin. I
Oh
wasted
shit.
my entire 20s just see, because I feel it's weird. Like, I come from a generation where it's like born right there in the middle, where it's like the accessibility was there, but at the same time it wasn't. Like, you could record at home, but you couldn't necessarily record at home the way people can record at home now.
Right.
So I spent my entire 20s in basements, freaking out about if I was dope enough, and also spending a bunch of money and time trying to fuck with like DAWs and whatnot to just like get beats and try to make music. And I've that's never really been my steez. If you know me, like I love to sit and listen to beats. I love instrumentals of all sorts. I love to sit and try to craft shit with somebody who's actually skilled at that side of our art, but I'm not a beatsmith at all. I'm not a producer whatsoever. So I
You had Fruity Loops too, didn't you?
yo, dude, I mean, I had Reason, Fruity Loops, uh, all of them, man. I just with and I bought a bunch of really stupid, expensive ass books to try to teach me how to do them, and I never fucking stuck with any of them. But
Yeah, Fruity Loops was a rite of passage. If you were a wannabe rapper in the late '90s, early 2000s, you had Fruity Loops.
absolutely. And I never really got it down. I never became even remotely good at it. But what I was good at is writing a shit ton of songs and then throwing them away and never telling anybody about them or never even rapping them for people until finally I just started like rapping at karaoke bars and shit, and people were like, yo, like I had always had close friends like in high school and shit that knew that I had rapped and were like, yo, you're insanely talented. And I'd always be like, fuck you for complimenting me. But like I never really believed in myself. I had such a struggle with self-doubt in my early stages of being an artist that it was just like, and it took an entire decade of music from me. But yeah, I was in the basements and attics and putting blankets on walls trying to make shit sound dope. And I don't think I really got happy with where I was at studio wise until I first made my first mixtape, Backstabber's Handbook. That was the first time I was like, this is real music.
Yeah. Trying to guerrilla warfare style the music, I think every single person who's ever been successful in music, unless you were just handpicked at random, I think that shows how badly you want it. When you're willing to, like you said, put blankets up in your room or go to your homies. I remember one time we were at some Section 8 apartment complex, and the only place we could record was the stairwell, which was fucking disgusting. It had laundry, like other people's dirty laundry just laying on the floor. But we that was the only place we record, so we just huddled up and tried our best, and then eventually somebody came out and complained. But I think that's the mark of the people that make it or get it farther than everyone else. Is it shows, I want this and I'm willing to do anything for it. And people don't understand, like, what seems like at the time the struggle, you're going to look back on and think, man, that's how bad I wanted it. And that's what kind of irritates me when people don't want to work for it. There's a lot of dope people in our area, being the Dayton, Ohio area. There's a lot of dope people, a lot of dope artists. And I've never really said this out loud, or at least not, behind doors, but Dayton has a serious problem with too much talent and not enough drive. There are so many rappers in Dayton that could have, in my opinion, surpassed anything that either me or you have done, but they don't have the drive to do it. They've got all the talent in the world. They would destroy anything on the radio. And I mean, granted, destroying anything on the radios these days isn't exactly an accomplishment. You could put a baby shitting on a microphone and it would be just as good as today's mainstream standards. But regardless, there's so many dope artists in Dayton who think they're going to sit on their couch and somebody's going to come along and scoop them up. And back to the artist, you already brought it up, Eminem. Eminem kind of set that standard of where, oh, I don't have to, work super hard. I can get discovered and somebody else will do it for me. Not saying that's what Eminem did, but that is the perception that is put out there. And I know for a fact that's not what Eminem did. I've watched documentaries on him, but that's the perception that somebody's going to discover me. Because, Dr. Dre found a 28-year-old Eminem, but that's the only part of the story you hear. And I think that created a culture where people think eventually, hey, somebody's going to come along and scoop me up. No, they're not.
I think one of the things one of the biggest misconceptions of trying to be a musician or an artist or whatever the fuck you want to call it is that it's just rapping and you just spitting and then that's it. Like you go there, you go to a studio, you spit your shit, and then that's it. And it's like the could not be further from reality to what it
Hmm.
is. I mean, you got to be fucking. Me and Billy always laugh about like you got to be dope at Photoshop to be a rapper these days and age.
Yeah.
But but you have to literally be multifaceted and be about your shit at every single level. And I think when they realize that stark realization, I don't think it's just a Dayton thing, but I'm with you. Dayton's always had a massive talent pool. I think that people are just willing to give up easily because as easily as you can pick up a shitty microphone at a guitar center and be like, I'm a rapper, and then you change your Facebook profile picture to being a rapper, your little rapper picture, and you got your mic and your Facebook profile picture, then you're a rapper, and then all of a sudden you got to do rapper shit, and then all that all unravels like a fucking mummy. And then just as easily as you bought that Guitar Center mic, it's just as easily on to the next thing. They're a Twitch streamer now. They're a fucking whatever the hell. Like it is what it is, man. But the people that really want it, they find a way. Everything comes to fruition if you bring it to fruition.
Yeah. And I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, which we'll get into it here in a minute. But the reason why we're having this conversation right now is because I wasn't getting the opportunities I wanted. So I said, fuck it. Actually, yesterday was the anniversary of 9 years ago. I had a bad experience with a promoter, and I'll say it. I don't give a fuck. It was Bundy at the Agora in Cleveland. I had a bad experience with him at a Bone Thugs and Harmony show, and I'm not speaking ill on Bundy at all. If you've been around this area, he's given a lot of people a lot of good opportunities. It was just one of those situations where I felt like I got boned and he didn't have time to address it. But that was enough to where I thought I'm never going to get opportunities unless I take the power in my own hands and start booking my own shows. That was 9 years ago yesterday. And it turned into uh, really accomplishing a lot of dreams that I did. But more importantly, and I mean that more importantly, it led to my friendship with you. Because had I just sat back and go, well, I guess I'll just wait for the other opportunity, we might not have ever met. Who knows? Who knows what could have happened? I don't have a crystal ball. What could have the world still aligned? Maybe, possibly. Who knows? But that's not what happened. What happened was is my ambition led me to being friends with you, and led me to a lot of other open doors. But speaking of that show, so you mentioned it a little bit ago, Backstabber's Handbook. You were referring to your alter ego, Knox. Why don't you go ahead and give us a story of how that came to be? But before that, how did you go, okay, it's time to really, step on the gas pedal, and then you created what I was just referring to?
I had always been in the background, like plotting and scheming and figuring out what I was gonna do once I was ready to pour gasoline on this shit and actually take it completely fucking serious. And I got eventually to the point to where I was just like, I couldn't fathom waking up until like I could not fathom waking up another day and not pursuing this shit and giving it my full 100% tilt opportunity. And finally that window kind of opened to where I think you just hit a certain level of not giving a fuck and you're just like, man, I've got to go for this shit. And if I don't, like, I'm not going to be able to fathom or stomach what the remainder of my life will be like. So I eventually, pulled the trigger in my first alias, so to speak, my first foray into the underground was Knox, and that is where I got a lot of my footing and a lot of my know-how on what this game is, so to speak. I have to give a shout out to my homie Brent Warmouth. He is a friend of mine who consistently pushed me when everybody else kind of just like was just like, hey, you're great, you're a dope rapper, oh my god, your lyrics are funny and shit, like blah blah blah, like, or like would hear me freestyle, or like, would listen to like some of the tracks I had recorded but wouldn't let anybody else hear. Like people would give me props and shit, but he was the one specifically that was like, yo, you've got to get out there and do this shit because this is like your birthright. And I was always like I said, I had huge confidence issues in my 20s. I was just like, no, I can't do it. It's just, I'm not ready yet, blah, blah, blah. And he was the one that was finally like, nope, you're going to do it. And you have to do it or you're a bitch. And I'm just, okay. So, and lo and behold, I came out with the Backstabber's Handbook. That was my first release as Knox, and it was a mixtape of it was a collection of beats that I had just grabbed, that I was kind of obsessed over from like random producers, and I just, my goal was just like, I've got to show people that I can spit. I've got to really go out and on a limb and do this. So that's what all those tracks are. They're not really necessarily thematic, or uh, they're not very reminiscent of what I do now, I guess. But they're just me trying to rap and get your attention as much as I humanly fucking can at that moment.
Little trivia for everybody. The first Knock show happened to be the first show I ever promoted. How did you go about getting that? Go ahead and explain what I'm talking about here.
All right, so you know, stage one, level one of being, an underground rapper. I'm like, I've got to find out what other underground rappers are doing, where the show's at. So lo and behold, this show that lined up was an Anybody Killer show at Odd Bodies in Dayton, Ohio. And I hit up a promoter. I don't even know the fucking guy's name anymore. It wasn't you, though. I hit up who was supposed to be the promoter of the show and was like, yo, how do I get on this show? How can I open for your show, kind sir? And I think he spun some yarn. He got me for like half a stack, I think, or some shit like that. But
Damn.
yeah, I think, yeah, but I was, like I said, I was willing to do whatever it took. And yeah, I think that's about the gist of it. And then I got to the show and was like, I remember telling you that shit. I was like, yeah, I'm the guy that gave you the money. You're like, hey, you didn't pay me fucking nothing, buddy. I'm
I
like,
don't remember that at all.
you don't remember that?
No, I don't. And that was such a you got to realize though,
Oh yeah.
that was such a strange day for me. Like I had no idea what I was doing. So a lot of the things that happened that day, like I remember the end result and I remember ABK yelling at his merch people. That's the only thing I really remember from that day. Oh, and I remember interrupting your set live on stage and telling the crowd how fucking dope you were.
Hey, there you go. I do remember that specifically.
Hmm. But I
Flattery.
believe it. I believe that happened though.
Yeah. I just remember being thankful that I even still got to perform on the show. And then that was the roots, so to speak, of old Noxious's origin story.
And
Uh,
oddly enough, a little bit of a tidbit of trivia here. I had to actually cut an act because I was notified of another buy-on that I was not notified about until like I think 3 days before. I had already linked up with you and was like, yeah, fuck it, it's all good, come on. And then the other group that was supposed to be on the show that I had to take off and had a phone call with was Alla Xul Elu. Everything goes back to this one show. It's fucking crazy.
yeah, it is very weird. The synergies and origins of this one show kind of spurred a lot of wheels to turn.
So okay, you have the show. Me and you link up. We basically decided we were gonna take Dayton on, and we were going to take the scene over. And that's exactly what happened. Listen, me and this guy who is my guest today, well, not basically, we created a scene from fucking nothing. Before we started booking this show, Dayton did not have an underground scene. There were people that listened to underground music, but there was no place to go. In 1 year, we had sold out shows featuring Twisted. It was crazy. What what doors, as you started to progress and we started to take over, so to speak, when did you start realizing, oh shit, doors are starting to open, I'm getting these other opportunities? What was that ride like?
I can remember specifically being like, well, like I said, when I hit this scene, I didn't really know what to expect because I had spent the greater part of my young adulthood just like being in the basement, plotting and planning and writing and spitting and just doing everything to get right. But once the wheels started turning and once I really started to do shows and play out, I was really just like kind of taken aback at like for instance, like one of the first times it hit me that shit was really clicking is I got a show with Prozac. And I was like, man, Prozac was like fucking influential as shit to me. And then I was like, it's a co-headline show. And it was probably what, man, maybe like 8 months after I had even came out. And I was like, man, we're already doing co-headline joints with fucking Prozac and shit. Like it just really was clicking. And I'll never forget those early days because I sat and tried to learn as much as possible, but I saw and talked to and had conversations with amazing people back then. And I will never forget those times, man. That little brief era in Ohio where there was like a pretty dope underground horrorcore show every weekend. I won't forget that. Those were great times. It was a blip though. It was real quick, man.
So okay, things are clicking, things are going well. When did you cross paths with, at the time, AXC, who was just Billy and Joe, and I think some other members? If you want to bring them up, I'll leave that up to you. But when did you start crossing paths and working with these guys?
Zach Religious and Nameless James were the other two members. I remember specifically we were at a venue, the infamous Dojo in Columbus at the time,
Oh Jesus!
and I had seen them. That was the first time I had seen them. I ran across Joe and Bill specifically, and I had heard murmurs of them, but I hadn't really checked their music out. And then I saw them, and I'll never forget it. Joey's the nicest thing that fucking old buzzard Joey's ever said to me is that the first night I ran into him, he was like, "Yo," he was like, "You're easily one of the dopest rappers I've seen in a long fucking time, bro." And I was like, "Oh man, thanks, man." I was like, enjoyed your set, chopped it up with him, and really kicked it off. And then I met Billy, like 10 minutes after that, and him and I kicked it off just the same as I did with Joe previously, and got to talking to them. And then it just so happened, obviously, same circle, same state. We have shows that are kind of in conjunction with each other and like opening up on the same bills, doing the same shit. We just became fast friends after that.
Okay, so you link up with them, you guys start talking. How does the official membership of you joining AXC come about?
Well, I remember we after a little after we started to hang out. I think it's just like we started to realize that we have the same common goals and we're coming up at the same time. And I'll never forget it, man. Like when I first saw the Forever Face, when I just first saw the imagery, even before I even heard the music that they were putting out, it spoke to me on some sort of like, not to sound, you know, stupid or corny or whatever, but it spoke to me on like a very like primal level. And I was intrigued with it immediately. So we started hanging out, kicking it. And honestly, man, like the homie Billy Obey, man, shout out to my brother Billy. meeting him, we really just like when we start hanging out, it's like when you meet somebody and you know that they're like minded and cut from the same cloth. Me and this dude were really cut from the same cloth, like same favorite movies, like same fucking collecting action figures, just same like obsession with this, listening to the Wicked shit, just came up the same exact way, like you know, just it just too many synergies and too many things that were we had in common for us to not really see eye to eye creatively. And then finally, just as I was about to ask them about it and kind of start hinting around about joining the group, they just came out and flat up asked me. We were upstairs at the Thompson house in Newport, Kentucky. And, Bill and Joe both approached me and was like, yo, you want to join the group? And I'm like, yo, absolutely. I was just about to ask you guys. So I believe that was in 2016.
Okay. So you joined a group, things start rolling. Why don't you go ahead? I'm going to basically sit back and you give me the start to now experience that you've had since joining AXC. Don't leave anything out.
It's been an absolutely fucking dope experience. It's the culmination of my dreams. You know what I'm saying? Like I love the group that I'm in, and I love what we do, and I love our music. So early on, I've always been super enthused about the everyday, like day to day with everything about just the ins and outs of this shit. So we started off playing. I mean that, like I said, it's like a fucking Candyland map around the Midwest and shit of just like bar here, lounge here, VFW here. You know that if you know what I'm talking about, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And everything was going great, and we were just continuing to rise. And we were on the rise before we even crossed paths. But once it was solidified and I joined the group, it really felt like we were just like flying. And man, we were doing shows like every weekend. I bought this Ford Transit and we drove that bitch all across the country, coast to coast, and we did shows everywhere every weekend. And I had the time of my fucking life. I'll never forget those days. um, Finally we were approached by MNE and they were like, yo, we'd love to have you on board. And that's when the dynamic started to shift to where we kind of had to become the entrepreneurs that we are now, so to speak. And that's what led to Long Live Evil being born. So once we signed with Magic Ninja Entertainment and linked up with Twisted, we did even more work nationally and internationally. We had to drive through Canada a couple times, which was fucking crazy within itself. Um, so we are international Z-list horrorcore entities.
Of
uh,
course.
so, you know, we kind of were soaking up while we're doing this grind and releasing albums, soaking up as much of this game as we possibly can and learning every facet of what we can possibly learn from the people around us. And that's what we use to set the foundation for Long Live Evil. And that's our imprint, AXE, Alla Xul Elu. That's our record label, if you will. And we have now signed two artists at this point. I hate saying signed though. I'd rather say we have taken on two artists under the house, and they are the ones that we're riding with so far. We have the super famous Fun Time Guys and SON, and it's been a hell of a ride so far, but we're fucking doing the shit. And I think I'd like to say that we're doing a good job. I think we're doing okay.
Yeah. I think what people I think what people when they look at you guys is even though you bring a newness to what we've all loved, it's also familiar. Like when I started the very first Camp Zool up until the last Camp Zool, I've worked every single show for you guys since, and I get that same vibe that we used to get. You know, there's nobody trying to start shit. I mean, hey, you're gonna have assholes no matter where you go. You know, it is what it is. I think the last Axmas we had I think it was the venue didn't have a liquor license, but there were still drunk people all over the place. You know what I mean? So like, you're always gonna have assholes that are gonna start shit. You know, one way or the other. But it was I think that's something that appeals you guys appeal to is the newness yet also a nostalgia. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, because I've never once strayed away from the fact that we are absolutely inspired by the people that pioneered this genre. Like you talk about Insane Clown Posse, Esham, Twisted. There's a million other acts that I mean I could throw on this pile, but those are the most prominent ones. Like we've never shied away from that fact, and I think that it's a lot of it is just so nostalgia driven, but at the same time, like I kind of sound like I'm rambling here, but like inspiration to me, it's like when I listen to that uh, song that inspires me, or I watch a movie that inspires me, it doesn't inspire me to make that exact thing. It inspires me to do my rendition of whatever that inspired me to do. But it's never like a copy and paste sort of thing. But there is a common thread between all of the imagery and all of the I guess just so to speak, like the vibe of everything from the mid to late 90s, early 2000s horrorcore underground rap scene. There's just a common thread with all of the imagery. I think that it speaks to people like us.
Yeah, sure. And just to be clear, for anybody listening right now, my comments that I'm about to make right now does not reflect on anyone else but myself. I just want to make that clear right now. But there's a lot of bullshit going on and has been for quite some time. There's been a lot of bullshit going on in the underground. And I feel like, and again, my opinion, I feel like the people who gravitate towards you guys, and not maybe not every single person, but the majority of the people I've met, I think those people don't want anything to do with the bullshit. I just think they want to have a good time. I think they want to listen to some dope music. And I mean, every time I've been around, nobody even brings it up. You know, all the stuff that's went on in the underground. Nobody cares in this scene. You know, and it's you go to a gathering these days, and there are definitely cliques. You know, the one thing that Juggalos wanted to be was one unified unit. It ain't that no more. And it hasn't been for a long time. And I don't care if anybody agrees with me, you don't have to. It's just the truth. You know, there's cliques at gatherings now. It's insane. And I think everybody that and again, my opinion, I think you guys don't gravitate or people rather don't gravitate towards you guys who are attracted to that kind of bullshit. You know, you guys appeal to what made us fall in love with this in the first place.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that every fandom has just this radical fucking side, man. That and there's like a division in every fandom. I think that I don't know why it is. I don't know why tribalism is the way it is for humans, but we tend to separate and segregate ourselves amongst and split hairs amongst the things we love. And the underground juggalo world is no fucking different there at all. It's even worse.
Yeah, for sure. But I kind of touched on the event here a little bit ago. Camp Zool, it's the new hot shit. It's what I have been looking forward to once a year. And I'm married, so there's an anniversary there. But I look forward to Camp Zool more. How did that come about?
I will be honest with you. Camp Zool has always been something that we had talked about and dreamt about, but Billy was the person that pushed it the most because I was just like, man, I don't know if we're ready to do our own festival. I don't know if we're ready to bite that off. And we fucking did, and it fucking clicked, man. And we bust our asses on it. And we're very humbled and honored to have you work yearly at it, my friend. But behind the scenes, we all know how much goes into it, and I didn't know if we at the time could pull it off, but we're staring down the barrel of the fourth one now. So shit's obviously working, and it's fucking dope, man. It's a religious moment for Zooligans worldwide.
The first one was done in November. What was the inspiration behind that? Because there's not a lot of festivals that go on in November.
Okay, well, first off, I gotta shout out Matt and James at Terrortown because they are the absolute fucking archbishops of horror, and I love them, and we love them collectively because they have really taken a chance and rolled the dice with us when we first started off with Camp Zool, and that kind of is why we had to go with a fucking November date because when we approached them about what we wanted to do, they were like, "Yo, we're a fucking haunt, and we're not going to open our gates to you." This is not as blunt and crass as they said it. They said it way more diplomatic and eloquent because they're fucking sweethearts. They said basically to us, we kind of need to see you prove it. We can't necessarily let you open up the doors, and we or they can't necessarily open up the doors to us and show us uh the park and let us take free reign of it while their season is going. So they were like, how about while we're still operational at the end in November, you guys show us what you're talking about when you want to bring a fucking outdoor music festival to our haunt. So we had to pull it off in November, and on some real ass Zooligan luck, it was the most swamp, fucking shitty, cold, rainy, muddy ass weekend you could have asked for, but it was magical.
Yeah, that's something that I always think of. I think about how fun day one was and then how cold day two was. Both were equally dope and fun, but for those who don't know, Ohio got its first snow of the year that night. It sucked so bad.
That is typical Zooligan fashion, I would like to add.
I think too it was kind of luck as far as Terrortown is fairly new, or at least from what the conversations I have, I get that impression is that they just kind of started doing this. And yes, they did take that actually speaks more volumes because if they just started, they were willing to take a chance on you guys. There's not a lot of people that would put their business up that like that.
I think they saw our imagery and one of our videos, specifically the deathbed video off of our album Mausoleum. I think they saw that and were like, yeah, these guys look like they might be the real fucking deal. So let's see what's up. But you couldn't ask. We've said it a million times, and I got to reiterate it for the million and one time that these guys are into the absolute essence of the wicked shit, and they live and breathe that on a daily basis. So meeting them was just like another one of those weird cities. And like I said, we're about to do the fourth Camp Zool. It's insane to me that we're literally staring down the barrel of the fourth Camp Zool.
So you kind of alluded to it a little bit ago about you weren't really sure of what challenges you could face. What challenges did you face, or did you think it ended up being easier to plan this than you thought?
Oh, absolutely not, man. We're still facing challenges getting ready to work on the fourth one, and it takes about half of our year to really iron out everything. We do everything in house. LLE is about as independent of an independent label as you could independently be. So we do everything in house for the most part. So it's months and months and months of just staring down the screen, laboring over every small detail, trying to iron out everything so the Zooligan experience is the fucking best it humanly can be. But the biggest hurdles really are just trying to outdo yourself each one. Like we started the first one and it was like a frigid the first one was like a fucking endurance test, let alone a concert. So I think people were easily impressed by the second one we did because it was outdoors and it was like hospitable at the very least. The third one, we I feel like we kind of we brought our A game, but we realized that things can improve. And I think by the time you see what we unveil with the fourth one, I think people are going to be thoroughly impressed and excited as fuck.
Yeah, and something that's kind of important to note, I feel like, and this might just be a logistics thing that nobody cares about, but to me, it I think it's an important milestone. Each year, it's grown a little bit more, not only with what you get when you buy a ticket, but the amount of tickets. Each year steadily has gotten more and more. So it's to me that as my promoter mind tells me, okay, shit, there's something here. And again, to kind of reiterate, if you haven't been to one, there's a couple people that I've been trying to convince to come for a while now who actually came out to Night of the Zooligans a couple weeks ago. That was their first time being on the Terrortown grounds, which is where the last Night of the Zooligans was held. And I think it really impressed them. Not only the passion that Terrortown shows with their staff and how well they take care of it, because like you said, they love it. Michaela, who's kind of my point of contact when I'm running shows for you guys, man, every time I run into her, she's like in a gigantic vat of fake blood with a gigantic smile on her face, like she genuinely loves it. They all do. Everybody that works there genuinely loves what they're doing, and I think that people are you they were it's reflected back in how I look at, the faces of the people that are there. I've never seen anybody sitting in there unless they were overly intoxicated and passed out who didn't look like they weren't having a great time.
There's a magic about the grounds of Terrortown, and I really truly believe that it is embodied by the spirit and heart of the greatest fucking fans, and I hate that word, in the world, but the supporters rather of us, the Zooligans, are the fucking absolute greatest that you could ever ask for. It really, everybody says that, but it's just the truth. When it comes down to support, when it comes down to behavior, when it comes down to the vibe and everybody having a good time, if you really want to feel that all welcoming environment again that you might have felt before, I feel like the current Zooligan landscape is basically the summary of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've said it publicly multiple times. It's the closest that, I've felt the reason that got me into underground music to begin with. It's why I enjoy, full disclosure. Yes, you guys do pay me to do the job, but I'm in a position where I don't have to do anything. Yes, the paycheck that you guys do give me is great. I like, being paid for doing, a good job. I do it because it's fun. I'm at that point in my quote unquote career where if it doesn't give me enjoyment, I'm not doing it. And that's one of the reasons why I decided not to come back to music and start a podcast because, man, I feel like I could have more fun doing a podcast than I could music at this point. So I'm not doing it. So that's my long winded way of saying that, if I didn't have fun putting on the show for this crowd, I wouldn't do it. But I have a great time, from everybody from the people that bought a ticket to the artist to the staff. And that's very rare, to find a trifecta like that. Cause going back to your Candyland board analogy, yeah, there's a shit ton of bars and clubs in this area where you might play for three people, and it's just there's so many shitty experiences when you do this kind of thing. So when you find something this, much fun, you stick with it.
Absolutely, man. And I wouldn't fucking ask you to even work it, honestly, if I didn't think you were gonna enjoy it. I would just be like, yo, come out. You know what I'm saying? Like, just attend it. But you being the absolute G assassin solid snake of promoters in front, head of house guys, I could not have you there, bro. And you've killed it so far.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And it's like I said, it's been a big enjoyment for me. It has given me um a taste of what I left behind, kind of. There's times where I'm standing on the side of the stage because once you guys get up there, it's no longer my job. It's Pretzel's job. It's Eric's job. They're the ones taking care of things behind the scenes. I'm just making sure nothing's burning down at this point, right?
Yes.
And there's times where I'm looking at the side of the stage and I'm looking up and I'm like, man, this is what I missed, the show aspect. Then I think of all the extra bullshit that goes with it to get to that point, and then it all kind of dissolves again. But it it's an honor. That's all I can really say, and I'm glad I've been able to be one of the few people to say that I've worked every single Camp Zool that's been there, so far anyway. Who knows how much longer this goes, but I hope is for quite some time after this. But real quick, because we're pushing an hour here almost, and I want to kind of wind this down. But before I do, what is one thing that you enjoy in life that somebody is going to listen to this and go, "What the fuck?"
I think honestly, if anybody knows me, like this is not going to surprise you at all. You already know what I'm probably about to say.
I hope it's what I think it is.
Well, I don't know. It might be something completely fucked up knowing you, but I don't think people realize how much of a fucking dork I am, bro. Like I absolutely love all things nerddom, but I would say it's probably my Magic the Gathering addiction.
Yeah.
I would say that that's probably it. I would say, everybody's always like, "Oh, you rap about killing people and fucking eating flesh," but yeah, I still can do that and talk some D and play some Magic, and I just love gaming, and but that's the kind of gaming I love the most.
What is what is an unpopular opinion of a horror movie that would get you hated?
And unpopular, I'm full of those though, because I'm kind of like I'm weird. I'm like in between being a horror hipster and not. Like I love horror, obviously, but like I do probably have some crazy ass opinions. Like my favorite Halloween is Halloween 6, and it's notorious.
Really?
Yes, it's notoriously hated, but I just saw it at the perfect time in my childhood when I was younger, and it influenced me so fucking much that I still to this day love it. But an opinion that would get me hated, hmm, I would have to say that. I mean, I don't know if it would get me hated, but I'm really getting tired of like the A24 like art horror shit. Like, I want to go back to just like bashing heads in and seeing gore and how I kind of felt in the 80s, man. I don't know. Like, I'm getting back to being a simplistic fella. I just want to see some fucking corpses and gore.
Yeah. What's your opinion on I've heard you use the term torture porn before. What's your opinion on movies like Hostel and movies like that where it's more about the violence than it is the story?
Yo, I'm about to get real philosophical on that for real. I believe, all right, I hate that shit. I'm not a fan of Saw. I love the first one because I think there's a real genuine merit to the first Saw. But I don't fuck with Hostel or the infinite sequels to Saw, but I know where they come from, man. Because if you think about this shit, it's like post 9/11 America. They weren't about to deal with like boogeyman supernatural shit because real life was scary as fuck for everybody then. So everybody was like, we have to get down to like primal fear and urges and such. And I think that's like where High Tension, Hostel, all that shit was born from.
All right. Well, as somebody who came up, we've already discussed, came up kind of self-made, and even as a member of AXC, you could still say you guys are self-made because it would be true. What's one piece of advice you could give somebody who's an aspiring artist? Because I see a lot of guys. I've obviously met every single person that has stood on an AXC stage for the last 3 years. I've met every single one of them before they got on. There's a lot of up and coming kids, which is great to see. Absolutely great to see. A lot of groups that are forming and showing that some aspiration. What's one piece of advice you could give them that you wish that you had when they were getting, or when you were rather getting your start so long ago?
If I could give anybody one piece of advice, it would be to genuinely just fucking not worry about being the dopest MC of all time. You don't have to. I mean, I'd like to pride myself on being as ill as I humanly can be when I pen shit, when I write shit, when I do everything I do. I put all of my juices into that, so to speak. But I want everybody to know that you don't have to fucking beat your idols. Uh you don't have to jump over every hurdle. If you just yourself and you're genuinely yourself, that shit goes way further than anything. Following any trend, following any kind of fucking algorithm or any of the bullshit. Just be your fucking self and read your contracts.
Oh, I love the ending part. Absolutely love the ending part. All right. Well, in closing, I just gotta say, first and foremost, thank you for taking the time to be my first guest. But there's nobody else I would even accept being my first guest on this show. You're one of the few people that I could say, and not be a cliche, that if someone needed it, you would give the shirt off your back. You've been. Uh, I'm glad we're not doing video right now because I'm starting to choke up.
Oh,
You've been a
buddy.
very you've been a very positive force in my life, and I'm so glad that you and your significant other Lisa are a part of our lives because you've done nothing but enrich it. um I'm truly, truly honored to call you a friend, and I appreciate not only the things that you've done for me and my wife, and just being an overall amazing, amazing human being, what you guys are doing for the underground. In order for there to be an underground, what you guys are doing is necessary, because there's a lot of the old foundation that is crumbling, and you guys are behind it, not only sweeping it up, but rebuilding it in another image. And I wish nothing but the best for you guys. Like I said, I'm honored to be even a small fragment, a part of it. Come show day, the I just, yeah, I love what you guys are doing, and I'm happy to be a part of it. So, if there's anything you would like to say in the closing moments here, the floor is yours, bro.
Damn, brother, I am fucking humbled and honored to hear all of that. That's very fucking, that means a lot to me, man. Thank you. I would just want to say shout out to every fucking Zooligan worldwide. Shout out to my brothers Billy and Joey. Shout out to SON. Shout out to Super Famous Fun Time guys. Shout out to, like I said, reiterated again, every motherfucking Zooligan. Shout out to everybody that tuned into the first inaugural Row Show featuring Dr. Lee Carver. and shout out to you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Yep, for sure. All right, man. Well, this is it, and we'll catch you next time. Thank
All right.
y'all for tuning in to the first episode of The Rose Show. I did it. It's finally here.